Hello, I'm Simon and welcome to the Underscore podcast. Today I'm with Rosa, James Ward, who is the UCU representative for Ulster University, and Collette An, who is a UUSU member. We're here to discuss the latest round of strikes.
Okay, we're going to start with you, if that's okay. So can we have a background to the strikes and just about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So the strikes have been ongoing now for a lot of years. I started university here in 2017 and the strike action was already occurring over that period. Since then, although the fights and the trade disputes themselves haven't changed in topic, a lot of changes have occurred over the recent years, and especially this academic year where we've seen a lot of strike action going on. I study psychology, and I'm based here on the Coleraine campus. I did my undergraduate here as well, and at the moment I am just finishing off my master's degree too.
Leigh, I just want to know how the strikes have impacted on you as a student.
There's been a lot of implications for strike action on me as an individual and students generally, I would say. There has obviously been a lot of lost teaching time, but, I fully support the strike action. I think, it obviously varies depending on which department, how many members are striking at the time. I've been quite fortunate that I haven't missed too much lecture time, and I haven't missed any during my master's degree, except for when I have been on the pickets myself as a staff member.
Okay.
Yeah, so how has this impacted you as a staff member? I know you just said that as a staff member, the only time you've missed class is from being in the pickets, so could you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, obviously the main facet of being in a strike period is that members are not encouraged to cross the picket line. And what that means is either physically or digitally. What that has meant for me is that I have missed lectures and had to catch those up in my own time because I have been taking part in the strikes and being on the pickets for myself. That's been important for me to do, and it was an important consideration for me to make. I knew that I would be able to catch up on my lectures because most of it was online. Fortunately, I know a lot of other students wouldn't be in that position, but the forfeits especially affects me as a casualised member of staff, as a member of staff that doesn't get any sick pay, doesn't get any holiday leave or any of the other benefits that a permanent member of staff would have. So it has been essential for me to fight for not only my rights, but for the rights of others who haven't been able to get down onto the picket lines themselves.
Yes, so you are a mature student member for the UUSU. So I just want to know, why can the UUSU not get involved in opposing the strikes?
That's not true. UUSU, certainly since I have been at the university studying, UUSU have supported the strikes previously. It's only been this year where the student executive introduced a stance to the student council, which was not to support. And as far as I understand, it's with regards to the influence of the pandemic on the learning experience and trying to build back the on-campus community. So I do empathise with that, but at the same time, the issues haven't really changed significantly. Within that also, we have student staff members such as myself. We have PhD students and doctorate students who have felt very unsupported in this time. And I know UUSU are doing some work around that to explore how best to support these individuals. But I think there's going to be a lot of work needed to repair the damage that has been caused, unfortunately, by that stance and a lack of understanding, really, about what the strikes are for, communications being made available to students. The only communication that UUSU have actually made to date about the strikes was notification of their stance not to support UCU at this time. So there has been subsequent action by student councillors such as myself and other student activists within the group Students Supporting Industrial Action. We have provided an awful lot of information. We've tried to do it in a balanced way, but unfortunately, the university hasn't been particularly forthcoming with their side, their side of the events. So we have really relied upon UCU updates to make sure that students are fully aware, they can make their own decisions whether or not they want to cross the picket lines, how it will affect them. So to say that UUSU can't get involved is inaccurate. Of course they can get involved. Unfortunately, they have decided not to this time, but that's not to say that they won't change that in the future. And I've been working consistently throughout the year to try and get that decision overturned.
Yeah, so how can students actually get involved and support the strikes?
There's lots of ways. You know, it really is a personal decision. Obviously, I can't say that there will be no repercussions for participating. Like myself, you know, you may find that you have to catch up in your own time with the studies if you're able to do so. So you can join us down on the picket lines. You can choose not to attend lectures on campus or digitally. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can get involved. You can check out UCU Ulster on Twitter and on social media, see what is happening. We're always involved in rallies and different things within the local community as well. You know, Derry Trades Council have been really supportive, as have Belfast Trades Council. So there's loads of different things going on, and I think some of the campuses even have sort of like these out schools where they're doing alternative lectures, which is really great because that means that everybody can get involved and they're still learning something at the same time, but it might be more about campaigning, solidarity movements, you know, something a little bit different and a little bit more a little bit less dry than maybe the standard lecture might be.
So I just want to know what your experience is as a student staff member with the casualisation of your job.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong, I took on my job knowing that it would be a 6-month contract, but you know, I'm a single parent and I'm trying to get through my master's degree. I don't get any additional funding from student finance to help me do that, which is one reason I took on that job. Within 3 weeks of actually starting that 6-month contract, which I'm now like 4 or 5 months into, my line manager had a meeting with me and talked about whether or not my contract would be renewed. Within 3 weeks of starting, that's kind of like, you know, it kind of put me on the back foot thinking, you know, oh goodness, I'm going to have to actually start looking for another job if the funding doesn't come through for this project. How involved can I actually get myself and allow myself to be? That's been quite a tricky balance. Within my contract, I'm only allowed to work a set number of hours each semester as a member of staff. So I'm limited to working 10 hours a week. So for me, working to contract, as many other staff members have been doing, is quite easy because, you know, my theory is I'm being paid by the hour. I'm not doing any more than 10 hours in a week at all, point blank, which frustrates probably my line manager, who emails me on different days and, you know, wants to find out what I'm doing, but I don't reply until the day I have designated to work. It's kind of put me in a precarious position as well, because, I love academia, and having this taste of it makes me want to do more. But I'm aware that other staff members, such as myself, have been on these rolling 6-month contracts for, a couple of years, 5 years, 10 years, I've even read in some places. And the influence on that in the rest of your life is quite significant, not knowing whether you're coming or going, not being able to make plans for the future. I would like to get myself into a position where I can feel safe and secure and know that I have a job to come back to.
How does the lack of a secured pension impact on your life?
Well, it's not really a lack of secured pension when you get no pension at all. Again, as I said, with not knowing whether I'm coming or going, I can't make any plans for the future. What I'm trying to do is, certainly with the cost of living at the moment, the way that it is, I'm trying to save as much as I possibly can to provide a bit of a buffer when I get onto, hopefully in the future, a PhD course. So, it would be nice to know that I have a pension for the future, but at this moment in time, there's nothing available for me, which again is worrying. I will have access, as it stands at the minute, to a state pension, a pension that I've acquired from a past job, and a very, very tiny military pension, because I was in the Reserve Armed Forces. I only got paid a pension for the time that I actually served away on operations. So, my massive military pension is about £800. Don't go spending it all at once. So if I were to get into a secure job, a permanent job, the pension contributions as they stand at the moment, due to the decision made by Universities UK, means that I will be paying a higher rate of pension compared to someone who's been in academia for longer, and it will be capped at, I think it's around, is it 30 grand? 30 grand. So that's not going to be a lot of money. When you consider at the moment, 500 litres of heating oil is about, it was about £730 last week when I checked, which is insane. Imagine that in older age, where you're going to need the heating on. We don't know what the prices are going to be like. They'll probably be, they could be in their thousands. That 30 grand, excuse me, that 30 grand might have to do me for, 30 or 40 years even. So that's a really scary position to find yourself in and to be thinking about now, even as a 35-year-old woman. I know I don't look it.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question, you've sort of already touched on it, so I don't really think there's a need to ask it again. Do you, Simon? Not really.
I can ask anyway. So how do the strikes impact on you as a mature student?
Well, as I say, I'm fully supportive of the strikes, industrial action, the action short of strike, and all the other implications of that. For me, as a mature student, yes, there has been a lot of catching up, but I'm quite attuned to doing that anyway, because what I've found is that when my son has time off of school for half term, for example, that usually takes me about 3 weeks to catch up on 1 week of missed lectures. Yeah, I saw your eyes there. So I'm fairly accustomed to doing that, but not everybody would be. And that's absolutely appreciated. But, what UCU are actually fighting for is the future of higher education. what I have been fighting for within UUSU as a counsellor, as an academic rep, has been for more flexibility, and not to put that on the lecturers, which is what has happened during the pandemic. We've changed overnight from face-to-face learning to online learning, and the lecturers were given no warning whatsoever. It was basically, here, take that, that's what you're doing, by email. And I found during that time, for me, that gave me a lot more flexibility to learn. And those are the kinds of things that we need to have in place permanently to support students with caring responsibilities, disabled students, students with other needs, because not everybody can give 100% commitment to university 100% of the time. We're finding now with clinically extremely vulnerable students as well, they've been given the option of either miss sessions because lecturers now cannot do face-to-face and online together. They're given the choice of miss those sessions and miss out on valuable learning time, or take a leave of absence for a year, which massively interrupts people's lives. I also claim universal credit because I am on a, quite a low income. I have a child, I'm a disabled person myself, and I know firsthand how difficult that system is to navigate. So to be able to say, take a year out, that then messes with any benefits that you're getting if you're also receiving a student loan, for example, or maintenance grants or anything along those lines. And so UCU have been fighting for that too. They're fighting for not just change to the system, but change to the system that is sustainable, and that means education is more inclusive, and it means that more people can get involved. They also believe in free education for all, which is something that every student, I'm sure can get behind as well. Certainly, we want to see students doing well. And I say that as, someone who has supported students for years and years and years in many different ways. I've seen the struggles that people have faced. Mature students, just to come back to your point, are most at risk of dropping out of courses, and that is usually due to all the other things that are going on outside of study, due to a lack of flexibility, due to financial commitments, due to caring responsibilities either for adults or children. And what needs to change is exactly what UCU are fighting for. And I believe in what they're doing, and I believe that, it's not a students versus staff members thing, it's a students and staff members thing fighting against an education system which is broken, which means that, people from the lowest income backgrounds and the most disadvantaged backgrounds can't participate. And this is important to mature students because they are also the most deprived financially, and with regards to resources. They tend to have more disabilities than what I call traditional route students, and there are generally more challenges within education for them. So something that I have fought for within all of this, within representation, is to make sure that any changes to the system are fair and they support all students, but especially mature students, because they make up about 2/3 of the UK university population, and that also sits within Ulster University. Mature students make up around, as I say, 66%, and a third of the whole student population at Ulster are aged over 30. So obviously there will be other commitments and things to consider. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add, Simon?
No, I think that's everything.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So we're going to move on to you, James.
It's really interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of questions, but you don't have to just answer whatever you want, honestly.
So James, just to start, could you give us a bit of background to the strikes?
Yeah, I'm sorry to have to do this, Simon, but I'm just going to have to qualify the word strikes here. I know that's a real kind of pedantic thing to do, but last time I spoke to you, I was out in the picket line. I was actually on strike. Part of an industrial action, which Letty has very eloquently told you was to do with current working conditions affecting people working in higher education. Since that period of industrial action, there's been no improved offer from the employers. And so we had a democratic mandate to escalate the action. And the path that we chose to take was a boycott of marking and assessment. And that is due to kick in this Monday coming, 23rd of May. And so what that means is that we, for the period of action, don't engage in marking or assessment of student work. Most universities have responded to that in a particular way, which is to say, you're not doing part of your job, we are going to deduct a certain proportion of your salary that represents the time that you would spend doing that job. In most cases, that's been 20 or 30%. So what the technical term for that would be called would be action short of a strike. You know, you're not doing some of your job, some of your salary is being taken away from you. What Ulster University decided to do, as announced yesterday in an email, was to say that if you take part in this action, you will be deemed not to be at work, and we do not require any duties from you at all. Therefore, you'll be deducted 100% of your salary. So the term for what's happening here is not a strike. I want to go to work on Monday. I've notified my employer that there's certain things I'm unable to do because I'm participating in industrial action. But I still want to do things like, you know, talk to students, reassure them that everything is okay, communicate with my other colleagues in the university, do my research, participate in funded projects, want to do all those things. But my employer has told me we do not require any duties from you. So that's not a strike. I want to go to work, I want to do my job. That's a lockout. That is a tactic used by employers, and I say used because it's the past tense, because it's something I wouldn't expect to see happen in 2022. Tactic used by employers to break any kind of meaningful or useful or lawful industrial action by putting a worker under so much pressure that they feel it's impossible other than to give in to what the employer is asking them to do. That's what we call a lockout. Most people here would know the most famous example of lockout in labour history on this island was in 1913. And so the background is that the conditions which motivated the industrial action are ongoing, but our attempt to take lawful industrial action has been shifted by this particular tactic from the employers, which I'm very, very disappointed and very angry to see. And I'm just sad that industrial relations have literally been put back 100 years by this action. So I think that's where we are today.
Yeah, that's very... it's definitely very harsh. So, since we...
So our next question is, what sort of impact will the marketing boycott have on students that are supposed to be graduating this summer?
Well, I think there is going to be a certain amount of stress for people, a certain amount of uncertainty. That's true. As I say, I hope this is resolved quickly, and I hope what this brings about is nothing more than a pause rather than a complete cessation in what is happening. I'm old enough to have seen this happen before. When I was starting my career, back in, I think it was 2006, UCU staged a marketing boycott. There's no, as you probably would be aware, there's no kind of great lost generation of 2006 graduates. Because that action was resolved decisively and quickly with some movement from the employer, I think it worked out well for everybody, including the students who graduated this year. It's been done before, let's do it again.
Yeah. So, what is number 8? I'm confused. Number 8, Simon, what does that mean?
Basically, what's the best way to target those in power as opposed to kind of hitting us? It's just one question that was said by a friend. Doesn't really make sense, does it?
No.
Right, let's get to question 9.
Okay.
Question 9 you've already touched on, really. So we'll just
Happy to answer it again if you want.
yeah. So obviously you touched on this before, but is there a better alternative than consistent strikes?
Yep, there certainly is. The better alternative is for employers to put in place a settlement which offers fair, equitable and sustainable working conditions for all. If that happened tomorrow, I would never go on strike again, and I'd be delighted never to have to go on strike again.
Okay, so how do you cope with the mixed feelings from students and non-striking staff? Do you find it hard to deal with a lack of support?
Yes, I do. I find it particularly hard in that I have colleagues, members of staff, who will take the benefits from action like this, but will not make the sacrifice of participating in the action. And it is a sacrifice. It's not something anybody wants to do. And it's not something you want to do lightly. It is hard to reflect support, but it is great to have even the tiniest bit of support from anyone. It's great that I have with me here today somebody who's both a student and a member of staff at this institution, and who understands and is a great communicator to other students. So it's hard to reflect support, but it's great to be encouraged by the support that we do have, and I want to thank those people who have showed us support.
Yeah, so how important do you think it is for students to show the support?
Really important. National Union of Students, and again this is a national issue, it's not a local issue, it's across the whole of the UK. It's very vocal in support for this action. The more support we get, the more critical mass we get, the more quickly this will be over, and we can all go back to doing what we love, which is studying and working.
Okay, so if the strikes achieve nothing again, are you going to do them worthwhile?
I think the strikes, or the action, has already achieved something, and it's a phrase that was used by Letty when she was speaking earlier. She said, this system is broken. The strikes have, much to the discomfort of our employers, who would much more rather celebrate things like the Research Excellence Framework, which this institution and many others have made a lot of publicity about universities being world class. The achievement of people who work in universities is world class. The conditions in which those achievements are made are not. This action points to the fact that employers are glossing over what is, as Okay, so it is true that as a union we're legally required to notify employers of any action that's going to take place, and we notify them in advance of that. I think that's as far as I can comfortably answer that question. We did our part. It is not for me to speak for employers as to what mitigation they're going to take, but in relation to that question, I will say that strike breaking, which is what that is when you put replacements for people who are taking industrial action is a deeply unethical practice, undermines, the democratic premise of trade unions. It undermines the dignity of those people who are taking the action, and it's quite legally dubious as well as quite morally dubious. We know all about what happened with P&O and what happened when replacements were got for the workers of P&O. Is that a road that you want to go down? I don't think so personally. So I can't speak for the university, but I can offer you my perspective on that, and maybe Laddie has something to add there.
Yeah, as James alluded to there with P&O, obviously we saw that the one of the ships was stuck outside of Larne, wasn't it? And, they had to forcibly remove staff members who were striking on the ship. What they actually did was they replaced them with staff who were being paid much, much lower than our national minimum wage, and they were able to do that because of where the ship was registered to. My concern would be, they call it scabbing. The conditions for those replacement staff, are they going to be at the same level as what we are currently receiving? Are they going to be casualised staff like myself? How long will they be in place for? The university can operate short-term contracts of just, a week or 4 weeks. So that would be my concern with that, excuse me, are those people who are coming in to replace lecturers getting the same, even though the working conditions and the pay is unequal now, are they going to receive that level of benefit or remuneration? Also, as James said, it is highly unethical. We have seen across the UK external examiners resigning in solidarity and asking people not to take those replacement roles. So although the university may be able to offer replacement lecturers, there is massive moral and ethical issues with doing that, which need to be fully considered. I understand and I appreciate where Sam is coming from, but the whole purpose of industrial action is to cause a disruption with the proviso that, it gets the employers moving, it gets them thinking, what needs to be changed, how do we do that, how can we achieve that, and how can we mitigate against these circumstances arising again in the future for students as well as staff.
I think that next question, I don't think there's any need to ask that because it's not really.
I don't think I'll get an answer for this one, but
I can answer it if you want.
I can provide context there too.
Do you go ahead, Rosa?
You can ask that one.
Okay, so is there any chance of refunds for wasted money because we're paying for services, people my age are paying for services that they're just not getting?
So I can't tell you whether or not a refund would be forthcoming, but I would suggest if you want a refund, I'd say you're entirely within your rights to ask for it. Haven't seen the disruption that's taken place. And what you want to do is contact not those people who are on strike, but their employers who have acceded to a situation where it's got to this and who are the ones who take the fee income. And I would ask them a few more questions in addition to can I have a refund, which I think is a very important question, but I would also ask them maybe a question like this. Every time there's any kind of action, you deduct 100% of salary from the employees who are taking action. Previously, those pay deductions, which is a lot of money by now, previously they've gone to student hardship funds. Are they going to go there this time? If not, where are they going? If these fees are tuition fees, which pay for tuition, and tuition isn't happening, what are you spending that money on? What happens to that money in the normal course of action when not all of it seems to go to pay for student learning? what happens to those fees? And there's a lot of questions to be asked about money and deductions. Refunds is one question, but I'd suggest don't stop there. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I am happy to come in here and answer the questions I can, but there's people I can't answer some of the questions being asked here, but there's people who can, so please speak to those people.
So who should we send those questions towards?
You send it to management, university. The CEO, if you want to use that corporate speak, of the university is Paul Bartholomew, the Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, that's what I
Paul
was saying.
Bartholomew, if you would be interested in it, we would be very interested to have you.
Actually, I have some experience of getting some refund.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What happened to me, I started my master's degree as a full-time student. And unfortunately, we had the circuit breaker. My son was off of school then until like February, March time. I had to move to part-time study. What that actually meant was that my course, because I effectively extended by a year, I was charged the annual fee increase on top of my my tuition fee loan. It was only about 50 quid, but it's 50 quid in my pocket, which I needed at that time because I wasn't working. So I went through the complaints process. There is a complaint process online on the Ulster website. Put that into a search engine, Ulster University complaints. It should bring up the results there. I managed to send through a complaint, and I directed it to Paul Bartholomew and explained the circumstances, and that was waived. And I got a nice email from him to apologise for charging me that additional fee in the first place.
Yeah.
So my suggestion and my recommendation, which is something that I've put across on Students Supporting Industrial Action as well, is to ask via the complaint system. All the complaints are completely logged and audited. It's a simple form to fill out, and then you email it through with your desired resolutions. Something that I am currently working on for Students Supporting Industrial Action is a general open letter to request refunds for all students who have been affected. So that would be everybody. Over the strike days as an absolute minimum. I'm feeling compelled to ask for more than that in writing my letter, because obviously students have also been affected by the action short of strike, which began in, and obviously this next marking and assessment boycott, marking and boycott assessment. But I'm not sure how well that would be received. Probably not very well received at all. So although it's something that I'm thinking about, I am definitely putting in for the period of strike action where students may have missed lectures or valuable learning time. And that's not without solidarity to UCU, but I firmly believe that students deserve absolutely more than what they have received from the senior management within the university.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or is that everything?
No, that's everything I want to say on that one at the moment. It's a working document that I'm sat down to do yesterday. Yeah. So I've got to update that now for the 100% pay deductions.
Yeah, I think that's all. We've covered most everything.
Should I ask the last two then, while we're here?
Well,
I don't really think it's
necessary because he needs to go through those jumps. Maybe wants to find that out.
So if anybody would like to get in contact with Paul Bartholomew, you can do that by Paul Bartholomew. If you'd like to come up for an interview, we'd be very interested in speaking to you.
Yeah.
This has been The Underscore. My name is Simon.
I'm Rosa.
And we've been with James Ward and
Collette.
Collette.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you so much.